morning, everybody, and welcome to another day at live at the Waterhole. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and I'll be the voice that you'll be hearing for the next couple of hours. And I'm so excited to be here, and especially because we're starting off the morning with plenty of elephants at Jamala, which is in Madikwe Game Reserve. If this is your first time joining, welcome. This is a live and interactive safari. So if you have any questions for me, if you'd like to make any comments, or even just let me know it's your first time watching, you can head over to the WildEarth website and you can ask questions there. And what I'll do is I always do, I'll just wait 1 minute to see who will be joining me this morning. I don't like talking to myself, so it's really nice if I can interact with all of you. Hi, Catherine. You've said yay, a Taylor. Oh, man, that makes my day. Thank you very, very much. It's good to know that you are joining once again. I love that this little, not this little, it's a big buffalo bull in and amongst the elephants on the left hand side of the screen doesn't seem to be too bothered by the giants, and the giants don't seem to be bothered by the bull. But perhaps that will change a bit later as more and more animals come down to the water's edge to cool off. It must be boiling in Madikwe. We've in the low felt the temperatures are starting to rise once again after a little bit of a cold spell last week, which was refreshing, in fact. And now we're going to be back to the sunny days where plenty of animals will be around the water. Elephants are all looking very peaceful, though. Lots of them with their trunks resting on the ground, having a siesta, and some just submerging themselves in that muddy water, taking a moment to cool themselves down. And speaking of hot days, let's go check out what the weather is going to be at the rest of the locations. And we're back. So as you can see, it's going to be nice and toasty pretty much all round. Gosh, and the more and more you stare at this picture, if you gaze away from the waterhole and head up to the tops of the tree line where the mountains meet. And you can see that there's so many elephants, some moving away, and there's still some coming down. That buffalo also just taking a wide berth around all the elephants, stopping to look back. I think he's deciding where he's going to rest for the duration of the day while it's hot. And the last couple of shows, we've actually been seeing a lot of buffaloes just lying down in and amongst these trees. It's easier for a buffalo to find a bit of shade, but you can see the elephants on the left hand side. It looks like there's quite a big tree, not much foliage on it though. And they're all desperately standing around there, also probably just having a siesta and keeping nice and cool. Oh, there is a second buffalo to the right of the one that was moving around. I think it's just stood up, or I might have missed it. Maybe it was standing this entire time tucked underneath a tree. No, Wally, you said, yes, Taylor, you can't have me feeling lonely. Thank you. My goodness, it does get lonely. At least my dog is here, so he kind of keeps me company, except he's also having a siesta like most of the elephants. So it is good to chat to all of you. And I've been doing lots of research trying to find new information about elephants, if there's any current studies going on. So I'm going to keep delving into that, and hopefully we'll hit the jackpot. But for the most part, the elephants are just going to do what they do every single day. We'll see lots of interactions between the individuals, which is great for animal behavior. I'm sure we'll get some vocalizations as we kind of go along. And there's always a chance to do a bit of birding. Maybe if we visit Tau a little bit later, that's a great area for birding. It's another camera that's located in Madikwe Game Reserve, and see if we can add some new birds to our list. But of course, we can bird anywhere. Patisse, you said that you're from Australia and you've just actually got back from 3 weeks of diving with sharks. That's awesome. That is amazing. You're a lot braver than I am. I would probably have a heart attack immediately if I was in the water with a shark. I mean, I'm sure I've spent a lot of time in the ocean, especially when I was younger. I'm sure that there's been sharks nearby and I never saw them, thankfully. Otherwise, I'd be able to walk on water and get out of there very quickly. And I know that sounds completely ridiculous, but we all have phobias and fears, and sharks are one of mine. Um, I think it's just because I don't quite understand them, and I haven't really, been with people who are experienced with diving with sharks. And then people laugh at me. They say, "Wait, elephant, you're scared of me, but you'll go and walk in areas where there's lions, leopards, elephants, rhino, buffalo, hippos, you name it." But that's because I've done it so often, and I have an understanding of the different animals' behaviors and how they react to people on foot, although it's not always the same. So that's awesome. Where did you go, Patisse? You got to tell us now. Where did you go diving? So the herd that was standing underneath the shady tree, they've all moving in now to have their turn to have a drink. Look at that tiny little elephant in the middle. Right, get your mom quickly. That is so small. We'll see when it approaches this area. We'll probably get a closer look. My goodness. And some unhappy individuals just chasing the rest about. You could see all the youngsters just running to some of the bigger elephant cars for surety. We'll wait for that little elephant to come out. But I don't even think it's a month old, but we'll see. I suppose from this distance, and we need to just watch it a bit. It's a bit cheeky of me to try and guess its age. Everybody just taking a step back. There's lots of bulls that are all trying to drink. As we know, there's a little pipe that pumps water into this pan, and I'm repeating myself for the all of us repeat ourselves. So sorry, but for those of you that are watching for the first time, the elephants love to drink fresh water, so they'll all have arguments and try and drink from the little pipe where all the elephants are gathered, kind of in the center, off to the center of the screen, and that's going to cause some commotion. There's some cars now. They're going to try and push through, and you can see the size difference. My goodness. But I don't know how many of them are going to have luck trying to push through on the left-hand side. But I would actually enter water, and there's a few elephants on the right that are winning. Look at them. Although they're going to be pushed and shoved out of the way. See, forwards and then moving backwards again, going forward and then coming back out. We're completely relaxed in this situation. Can we have a look at the little elephant that is just on the left-hand side? It's standing underneath Mom at the moment. It is so small that it actually just disappears in Mom's shadow and you can barely see it. Look how tiny it is. So it's a little boy. It must be quite nerve-wracking for a little elephant like that to be entangled amongst the herd. And this is where things can go wrong, and this is where you can also see an elephant cow really show her strength. Because if anybody accidentally knocks that little one, good luck, you'll be reprimanded. Possibly not by one elephant cow, but a couple. You can see how they're standing up to this big, well, this bull on the right, the one that's twisting his trunk. There's two cows that are kind of just saying, move out of the way.
Africam's YouTube channel delivers daily doses of enchanting wildlife moments. Experience highlights captured live from our cameras to stay informed about the wildlife action. Dive into the immersive world of Africam's YouTube membership community. Engage in live chats, express yourself with custom emojis and badges, and unlock exclusive behind-the-scenes content. Subscribe to Africam's YouTube channel today and become part of a wildlife-loving community.
Well, here we have a nice close view, and that little elephant actually going to walk straight towards the camera. Look at it. Ah, well, maybe it is closer to a month old. I'm just watching to see. Look how much its trunk has grown, how much it is kind of stretched out. It's always quite difficult to say, though. You can see, look how that slightly older calf is also being very protective over this little one. And the cow is desperate to get in for a drink. But while she's got the youngster at her side, she's going to have to be a bit more on the patient side. She got a little drink, but not much. This is where I'd go in and splash around in the mud for a little bit. And once the other elephants decide to do the same, hopefully that would alleviate some of the traffic and then go in and get a drink. But it is so hot today. There isn't much shade around this water hole, so it's perfect for the calf to stand right underneath mom and be shaded that way. Finch, now you're wondering if all of these elephants are from the same herd. Finch, the answer in short is really no. Because it's so hot and Madikwe is a monster of a game reserve. It's huge, 75,000 hectares. And with there not being lots and lots of water around, elephants and other animals will all come to a common point, being a pan, a waterhole, something along those lines. So a lots and lots of different elephants from different herds will come through and mingle with one another. It's a very social spot. It's not that all elephants or different breeding herds of elephants and bulls will get along with one another. Uh, but yeah, most of the socialization with other individuals will be done around here. You can see the cow on the left. Look how she's looking at this bull on the right. Quite standing down. And we'll see. I don't think he's going to cause too much trouble. I think he's just finished drinking. More than not, well, more than likely, he's going to go around and have a swallow in the mud. But it's so fascinating to see these different interactions. Now, Finch, I don't actually know what the average size herd of elephants is actually on Madikwe. Um, there are so many elephants; they're estimated to be over 1,000 individuals. But the average size can be anywhere from 8 to about 20 odd individuals, and it's made up of closely related females and their offspring. Carly, you're wondering what's the most amount of elephants I've ever seen at one time? Uh, Goodness, it's difficult to say. Um, the most elephants I've ever seen in one go is actually on a reserve I can see the fence line from where I'm sitting. And it's a place called Pridelands. It's part of Baluli Game Reserve, which is also open to the Kruger National Park and the surrounding game reserves. And I know for those of you that have been watching for a while, I have told this story a couple of times. But what happened there was it was a fenced off reserve, so completely enclosed by these big game fences that are electrified for about 60 years. So for 60 years, there were never ever any elephants. And you can imagine the vegetation would have been amazing, lush, not having these mega herbivores browsing and grazing on the land. And elephants are engineers. They really do uh, sculpt the landscape and all of the vegetation that goes with it. So when they started dropping the fences and they obviously stopped all hunting, it's now a nature reserve. The elephants came back in full force. And at some points around the eco training camp, there's a dam called Ndlovu Dam. I saw well over 100 elephants all around the water's edge, drinking and swimming. And I can't say that I've ever seen big herds like that before. Up in Kenya, especially in the Masai Mara Reserve and the Triangle and the marshy areas, you see a lot of elephants that will go out and feed in the wetlands for the day, and then it's multiple herds joining up. And I suppose you could get to well over 100 individuals, but they're kind of spread out. They're not necessarily all feeding on top of one another. But when I say that the whole of Ndlovu Dam was completely surrounded by elephants, you couldn't see the edge of the water, and then a whole bunch of elephants also swimming in the middle. So that was quite spectacular. I would have loved to have seen many, many years ago when elephants would have been migrating from West Africa to to Southeast Africa, even into Southern Africa, I suppose, where there would have been tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of individuals all on the go. And if you Google uh, something along those lines, there's actually some photos of what it used to look like.
Step into a world of discovery as you join Eco-Training's renowned courses in the heart of Kenya's Masai Mara. These courses are the perfect way to gain a deep understanding of the African bush, even if you have limited time. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to experience the wild in a meaningful and life-changing way. Enroll today and embark on a transformative journey with Eco-Training in Kenya's Masai Mara, the leading force in conservation education.
Things seem to be settling down now. I'd be that elephant on the right hand side that's just got its head sticking up the water or wallowing around. But the pan is looking quite empty at the moment. Just the last couple of weeks have actually filled it up quite nicely with the water extending all the way around to those fallen logs, or the logs on the left hand side. But luckily for these elephants, there is water here all the time, unless the pipe bursts and there's not enough rain to top it up. And I have no idea when we are supposed to be expecting more rain, because we just have beautiful clear skies when we should be getting big cumulonimbus clouds starting to form. Finch, this little elephant will most certainly be nursing, still drinking milk from mom. However, they have to start learning how to use their trunk. So they'll go into the water and they'll start practicing sucking up water through their trunk. But it's really funny to watch, and if we can see it, but it looks, I think that little elephant and that cow has actually moved off now, but maybe we'll get some more but later. They'll suck it up, and as they try to bring their trunk to their mouth, so all the water just kind of gushes out again. So it takes a little bit of practice. They will be drinking a small amount of water, but it's really not necessary. It's difficult for them to keep cool because they, again, not having control of their trunk, they can't toss the muddy water all over themselves, but they can go in and just plop right down and wiggle about, and that will help. But when they're really tiny, they'll be reluctant to do so. You see them sticking right next to mom's side. As they get a bit older and their confidence grows, and then they'll kind of venture away from mom and spend a bit of time with the other young elephants. Gosh, that roaring sound that elephants make. You can see why when people come on safari for the first time and they hear something like that, they think it's a predator. But the elephants' vocalizations are so vast. That's kind of like a frustrated roar. Leave me alone or get out of my space. Keeping up with the system, this is a great question. You said, is it possible that a mother and daughter elephant could mate with the same bull? Absolutely. It might not happen right at the same time. The chances of, the estrus cycles being exactly the same is unlikely, kind of syncing up. Elephants don't typically have a specific breeding season. It just depends on the cows themselves and when they come into estrus. Um, so yeah, I mean, it could be the same bull. Just depends on who's around at that given time. And because elephants live such long lives, you can imagine that the chances of that happening are probable, especially on a reserve like this that has got a big fence around the entire premises. So the elephants aren't able to, oh, I suppose they could leave if they really wanted to. The elephants are good at pulling fences down or knocking them over. But, they're going to be interacting with the same individuals over and over. So that is bigger possibility than out in a big open ecosystem. You can see those two young bulls at the back and just socializing quite nicely with one another for the moment, but that could change. Michelle, you've said good luck with the warthogs at my house today. Oh my goodness, you have no idea. For those of you that have no idea what Michelle's talking about, is this I live in a wildlife state, so there's animals roaming around. And we're very lucky. It's a very safe place, so everybody leaves their doors open and windows open, except you get some uninvited guests. The warthogs are tame, not in a good way. It's because people have been feeding them, which, as you can imagine, creates a whole host of problems. So they're not really intimidated by people, which means they'll just waltz into your house. And they are thieves. They'll come through and they knock the bins over and like all sorts. They wreak all sorts of havoc in here. So I regularly have to chase them out. I haven't seen them for a few days, but now that it's really hot again, I'm sure I'll hear them. I sort of hear their hooves on the concrete and the tiles, and then I know maybe we'll get some more tugs that also come down to the water's edge. So it's really funny to watch them here. They're so nervous and they just don't seem to get a proper chance to wallow about and have a good drink. They're always being chased off by elephants and even the wildebeest and zebra. But the elephants are dominating this waterhole today. There's a couple of buffalo bulls. You can see them moving around and just lying under the shade of the trees, as I mentioned before. Whether or not all of them have had a mud wallow or if they're still going to come down, and we'll just have to wait and see. Now, Tracy has asked, why do elephants mostly chase other animals away from the water holes? So, just elephants being, the biggest mammal out here in Africa, well, on land. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Let me mute this very quickly. Oh, that was a horrible feeling. Thought I was going to sneeze, but now I'm not. Um, so Tracy, they're so big and they can be quite boisterous around a waterhole, especially if it is drying up. But we had a buffalo earlier that was in the middle in the mud and then kind of just walked past a couple of elephants, and they didn't seem to be quite bothered by him. So I suppose it really just depends on their mood too. A lot of the youngsters also like to chase animals around. But they're just sort of testing their strength and seeing who's going to be intimidated by them. And then the bulls are notorious for doing that. But like I said, animals will chase each other around a water hole or even an area, where it's nice to graze or browse. It really just depends. But the zebra here quite frequently chase all of the warthogs and the wildebeest too. So, and then we have the blacksmith lapwings wings that are always around the water's edge, and they chase so many different animals. But sometimes it's just nice and peaceful too. We'll see what happens when a herd of zebra or wildebeest come down, or even if a couple of these buffalo bulls also come back to the water's edge. It's always nice to see these interspecies interactions, and I think that that's one of the most interesting things about coming on safari is just seeing how all the different organisms within an ecosystem interact with one another. Just having a closer inspection. And maybe let's do that. Let's choose an animal. Which elephant are we gonna have a look at? Let's have a look at this bull on the right-hand side, seeing as though he's facing us. Maybe we can have a look at his tusks or his trunk and see what he's up to. There we go. You can see his tusks are quite rounded, and then the one on the left is chipped. It looks like a nice sized bull. Still haven't seen any tuskers or really large individuals at Madikwe. I'm not sure how old the oldest bull will be. They'll definitely have that on record somewhere, but whether or not it's available to the public, probably not. And the reason why I say this is that all these elephants were introduced to this game reserve. Jennifer, you've asked, what do I think is more scary? I haven't been asked this one before. An elephant trumpet or a lion roar? So for me personally, I think it's going to depend on the situation. When lions start to roar, it's kind of like it's not unexpected because it starts off really soft and then gets louder and louder. Whereas an elephant, when it trumpets, it kind of comes out of nowhere and it's a jarring sound. Like had elephants trumpeting around me all the time, and even when I watch the Waterhole show, every now and then I do jump a little bit just from how loud it is. So maybe wouldn't use the word scary personally, but the one that could give me the fright the most is an elephant trumpeting. But if it's your first time in on a safari, or perhaps it's late at night and in close proximity, uh, you'll kind of be wondering what on earth is that, and I think that those situations would definitely play on that. You might think, oh my goodness, the lions are right outside, they're trying to get in, but that's of course not the case. Something else though that makes a terrifying sound, and a lot of people wouldn't have heard this before, but hippos fighting two big bulls. Goodness gracious. Lots of also roaring, gurgling, grunting, but that's exceptionally loud. And especially being in water or in a depression of some kind, that sound really does travel. But hearing hippos fighting out on land uh, is quite something. And a lot of the time, I'll have when I'm on safari with people, or if I'm just doing some contract work at a lodge or whatever the case may be, and like I'll use the example in Zambia, in the Lozambezi National Park, you hear hippos fighting with one another all the time and quite often around the camps. And people will say they heard lions. Lions killed something last night. And like, let's do 8 times out of 10, it's not. It's just hippos fighting. And it takes some convincing, because people are like, no, 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 absolutely not. I promise. I promise it was lions killing something. And then hopefully you kind of hear it with the guests, and then you can be like, oh, okay, maybe you go and find them, see what they're up to. Some of the lodges in the Lozambezi National Park, you can actually just stand on the deck. Most of the camps are right on the edge of the water, and watch the hippos out on the floodplains. One thing though that I didn't know about hippos, and I'm sorry, I know we're looking at elephants, is I didn't know that hippos could produce that typical that you hear out on land. I suppose is well, when I say that, I didn't know that they could produce a sound. Of course, they can produce a sound, but I'd never heard it while they were on land before. And again, I actually heard it quite a few times in Zambia late at night, and again right around the tents, and further away from the water's edge. So that was quite an interesting thing to hear. But again, with elephants, just when you think that you've heard all the vocalizations, they will spring another one onto you. And as most of you know, with them communicating through infrasound, so really low frequencies that we aren't able to hear, there's a whole bunch of different vocalizations that we're missing out on too. A lot of animals, though, communicate through infrasounds, and we just don't even realize it.
Whether you're a retiree, a recent graduate, or a professional seeking a change, the 55-day Eco Training program is for you. With the coaching of experienced training guides, you'll embark on an unforgettable adventure that will give you a deep understanding of wildlife, conservation, and African cultures. If you sign up locally or internationally using this promo code, you'll receive 2,000 Rand off.
You can see this is a really good example of just how elephants relax and have a siesta, swaying from one leg to another. Normally, they'll be resting one of their back legs and then their trunk just flat on the ground. Haven't really covered themselves with much mud today. I mean, you can see there's a little bit there's a bit that's caked onto the top of this bull's back, but the rest of his body, he's missed so many places. I'm just looking at him. I always talk about this because I just think it is so fascinating. Look at his body. His body is enormous. He's got fairly long front legs, but again, look at that small head. So still, he hasn't reached his maximum size just yet. And this is typically what I've seen of the elephant bulls. Like I said, I've seen one or two individuals that have got enormous heads and kind of look like their bodies are in proportion, like everything sort of matches up, but not huge individuals. This could also be because I'm not on the ground with them. You know, we are looking up from a slightly elevated point, and you know, it's one thing being in a vehicle with elephants and really just gauging their size like that. But if we aren't, we can still use these different methods. It's making sure those very, very long front legs for me is a giveaway of an elephant that's still growing. Flint, thank you for your great questions today. You've said you wonder if an elephant could be born mute. I suppose that's a possibility. Um, that's interesting. I mean, I suppose anything could potentially be born mute or have some kind of genetic mutation or disease or anything like that. I don't know if this would assist with elephants. So elephants have well, I suppose we all have something called the p53 gene, and it's sometimes known as the guardian of the genome or genome, however you want to pronounce it. And we as humans, we only have one, but elephants have 20 copies of this specific gene. Now, what it really helps with is it helps elephants prevent getting cancer. But I wonder if something like this would also uh, help elephants from getting, I don't know, a disease or what kind of whatever the case may be. And I don't know what it would have, what effect it could have on genetic abnormal. I think you know what I'm trying to say. Sorry, tongue twisters today. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. I I also don't know how you would know if an elephant was, uh, mute or not. I think that would be an interesting thing. I wonder if they'd be able to figure that out in captivity rather than out in the wild. But I've never heard of it before. Let me ask the internet if there's ever been any cases of mute elephants. Just at a quick glance, I can't see anything, but what I'll do is I'll ask a friend of mine that actually is researching elephants, and perhaps he will have some more insight in something along those lines. Or also, I've got a bunch of friends who are wildlife vets, so maybe they'll be able to share some more knowledge. But that'll obviously everyone's working and that type of thing, so I don't think I'll necessarily get an instant reply. But I'll send it on to a couple of people, and maybe before 1:45, because that's when my shift ends. We'll get an answer. Can we have a wider view of the waterhole? Let's see what else is happening, if any other mammal species have come down. Oh, there we go. Look, there's a little elephant on the right again. Let's, oh, and the buffalo have joined. Oh, cool. You see, it's amazing. I got so stuck on that one elephant bull, I didn't see the others. Let's have a look at the buffalo, because this could be quite interesting. They've all moved around there, but now look how many elephants are also moving into the area. Here we go. We've got a nice mixture. We've got a couple of cows, which is nice. I don't know why my voice went so high pitched there. You don't really see lots of the breeding herds. Well, at least not at this water hole. It's not that they aren't there. It's always just the buffalo bulls that come through. And there you can see buffalo don't really care what water they drink from. This cow is literally drinking from the smallest pool of muddy water. I would rather just take a couple more steps to the right and drink from that. Can't imagine how stagnant and urine saturated that water might be. It actually gives me the heebie-jeebies just thinking about it. You can also see the buffalo. It's in between the other two individuals. And then also look at this calf that's coming in. You can see that they're a slightly different color. So when little buffalo are born, for the most part, they're a lighter color to the adults. And we see that with many different animal species. And that's just to help them blend in with the vegetation. And then as they get older, they tend to be quite dark. On occasion, though, well, actually, I suppose it's not that uncommon. You do see little buffalo calf that are almost black in coloration. Judy, you wondered if animals ever get sick from drinking the dirty water. My goodness, look at that tiny little buffalo calf on the right. Oh, it can barely even stand in the mud. Oh my goodness, that is absolutely precious. Oh, that must only be a week or two old. That is such a small little thing. My goodness. So most of the animals have built up resistance to the bacteria that will be in the waters. If you and I were to take a sip of this water, we'd be horribly sick. Um, but because their digestive systems are so different to ours, and again, just, oh, maybe it's not even, maybe it's only a couple of days old. It's so little. We'll see when it comes back out onto land. That maybe will help a bit. Looks very uncoordinated. Oops, and sorry, the camera has a mind of its own occasionally. So yeah, there is something called a blue-green algae. It's not actually an algae at all. It's a cyanobacteria, which is one of the oldest living organisms on this planet. And that can make animals very, very sick in high quantities, which we normally see coming about in dry season. These blooms of the cyanobacteria, yeah, can kill a lot of animals. And in Botswana a couple of years ago, there's I don't remember exactly how many elephants actually died, and for a long time they couldn't work out what it was. They thought it was poisoning. Maybe it was something to do with the fire. whatever the case is, and then it actually just turned out to be this blue-green algae cyanobacteria that ended up killing them. Oh my goodness. This must be so nice for this little calf. I doubt that it's had very many mud wallows in its life so far. And again, look at how out of proportion it is. Look how big that hind quarter is. Huge legs and a tiny body and an even smaller head. But like I said, when it comes out onto more stable ground, let's just see how wobbly it is. Mum's not wanting to leave the water just yet. She hasn't even had a proper wallow. Some of the cows are, though, just coming in for a drink and then moving on. Look at that little calf looking around, probably observing all the elephants. Isn't this absolutely adorable?
What if you could explore the world from an entirely new perspective? Flying a real drone live without leaving home. This is Nature Eye. Discover our planet's landscapes with a personal guide and a powerful camera. Every flight helps conserve the locations you visit. Book your adventure with Nature Eye.
Oh, doesn't that look wonderful? How the elephants don't roll around and hurt themselves on some of these stumps blows my mind. On occasion, actually at Ndlovu Dam and eco training, uh, there are quite a few logs and branches in the waterhole itself. And I seen this one elephant actually emerge from the water. He was swimming about and rolling around. And as he came up, there was this branch that had a big fork in it, and it actually wedged over the top of his head, well, kind of between where his back starts and his head starts, so around his neck essentially. But and he played around with it for so long, and then eventually took it off, which I thought was quite funny. Um, but again, like you can't really see what's going on underneath the water, and there's so many things here. But they have a tough, thick skin, and I suppose they're rather big animals, so maybe they're not too worried about it all the time. So, Jennifer, you actually agree with what I said earlier that when the elephants do trumpet loudly, they startle you. Absolutely. And especially when you're in a sighting with them, my goodness. And most guides at some point in their life will encounter elephants with predators. And then you should hear the vocalizations, because it's normally from the entire herd that vocalize at the same time, just showing their complete um, I suppose, annoyance with a lot of the predators. It's very unlikely that any of the predators would be able to hunt an elephant when it's in the herd. Of course, it does happen, especially with lions. But if there's an individual that's on its own, then of course that can happen too. But for the most part, the elephants are pretty safe when they stick together, and their size does help as well with the youngsters, making the cows quite successful at raising calves to adulthood. They must be one of the most successful mothers out there. Michelle, you're wondering what other animals visit me? Goodness, lots of different animals. There's often a herd of kudu that come by, some inyala, impala, all sorts of creatures, banded and dwarf mongoose. They're frequent visitors, tortoises, and snakes and scorpions, which are not my favorite. Especially, I mean, I don't mind them out there, of course, but when they're inside the house, not a fan. I haven't had any giraffe come around. I have had one or two zebras also poke their heads and come on by, but for the most part, the warthogs are daily visitors. They just thankfully they don't always come inside the house. Actually, as I'm watching outside, there is a kudu, a big kudu bull that's just walking past. I'm just trying to think what other visitors I occasionally have. Plenty of birds, and I saw an unusual bird the other day, which I was surprised by, and I just couldn't get inside to grab my camera quick enough. But there was a tinkerbird, a red-fronted tinkerbird, which I was shocked by. First, I thought it was an acacia-pied barbet because we see them around here, and it's the perfect habitat for them. But I couldn't believe it. I've actually seen some birds that you wouldn't normally, see because of the habitat. I've seen wood owls, which again they also like sort of denser vegetated areas. What else? What other cool birds have I seen? I have to think about it. Just the usual suspects. Look, is that a cow that's in and amongst the bulls on the left? I'm just trying to have a look. I think it might be. Yeah, it is. It looked like she was showing a little bit of interest in that big bull that stretched out, but now has kind of moved on. It's not just the boys that go chasing after the females when looking to mate. When the cows are in estrus, they sing a song to let the bulls know that they are ready to be mated with. And then with the big bulls coming into the area too, they will go up to them and show their interest. We'll have some zebra joining the waterhole shortly. There's quite a large herd that are making their way down. It might take them a couple of minutes to get here. And then the breeding herd of elephants with a little calf and some younger individuals having a bit more luck on the opposite side of the waterhole rather than this congested area.
I started watching WildEarth during COVID. I decided that I wanted to study more, and I saw that Eco Training Pridelands was doing courses, and I decided to do the 8-week online theory course at the end of last year. There's just so much out there to learn and to experience.
Sign up for an Eco Training digital course today with the promo code to receive 200 Rand off.
I was hoping the zebras would have made their way down by now. There's one individual that's just sort of not too far away from the water's edge. And typically it's a stallion that will make his way down to the water first. And goodness, zebras take ages to come and drink back and forth before they eventually feel comfortable. But we'll just be patient and keep on waiting. It's just quite soothing to just sit and listen to the elephants as they splash about. I find myself just about pinching myself or tapping my cheeks to stay awake during the waterhole shows, purely because of the the really wonderful ambient sound. And when I am in sightings in real life with elephants at a waterhole, I'll close my eyes and just listen. And that's such a great thing to do as well at night. Next time, if you are fortunate enough to go on a safari, whether you find a big herd of buffalo, maybe you're on your way back to camp or whatever the case may be, or a big herd of elephants, to switch a vehicle off and to close your eyes and to just listen. And it's such a different experience. Or I suppose you could just look straight up, and if it's a clear evening, you can stare at the stars. That really tickles, different senses. Juliana, you're wondering, when did I start getting exposed to the bush? I'm one of the really, really lucky ones out there. I was introduced to wildlife from a very young age before I could walk, talk, or anything along those those lines. One of my favorite, not one of my favorite. Wait, there's a youngster being reprimanded by an adult. My parents absolutely love going on safari. My parents are from Australia and they fell in love with South Africa and they moved to South Africa in the 80s. And that was pretty much what they did. They just went on safari after safari. So when I was born and my siblings were born, we got dragged along, and we were, I grew up quite fortunate, and pretty much most Christmas holidays, like this time of the year, we'd be up in the Kruger National Park and going to like one of the very many lodges, not necessarily staying inside the park, but because the young kids, need to keep us entertained somehow. So, sort of these places where they've got lots of swimming pools, trampolines, like kids clubs, just so my parents could also still enjoy themselves and relax and not have to worry about us 24/7. And yeah, so that's basically how it started for me. And my dad would say, do you guys want to go and do another holiday? Like, you want to go somewhere else? And we'd be like, nope, we want to go see wildlife. So wherever we can go, that's what we'd like to do. You could hear the zebra just whoop, 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 whoop in the background. A lot of the big bulls have moved off now. We have a pan to the left-hand side. Let's see what's happening there. Looks like most of the animals are moving off that one. Lots of trumpeting coming from that side too. Not much, actually. I'm just keeping an eye on this younger calf. Well, it's not really a young calf, but this individual that's in the middle kind of just standing by itself. It almost looks like it's up to no good.
Africam's YouTube channel delivers daily doses of enchanting wildlife moments. Experience highlights captured live from our cameras to stay informed about the wildlife action. Dive into the immersive world of Africam's YouTube membership community. Engage in live chats, express yourself with custom emojis and badges, and unlock exclusive behind-the-scenes content. Subscribe to Africam's YouTube channel today and become part of a wildlife-loving community.
Finally, the zebras have made it. Better late than never. not hesitating to walk into the water, get their hooves wet. We don't really see zebras rolling around and mud wallowing, but they do swim and are exceptional swimmers. Finch, you're wondering what is the animal that has the most pungent smell that you can smell before you even see it? The obvious answer here is actually from the animals that we're looking at, but not necessarily an elephant cow, but an elephant bull that is in must. So what that means, if you're unsure what the word must is, basically the elephant bulls start, once they're sexually mature, they start producing excessive amounts of testosterone. And it kind of drives them to go and search for females that are in estrus. So to move out of the area that they prefer, to kind of just linger around, and then they'll travel big distances. And it's a serious overproduction of testosterone. So they'll secrete consistently from their temporal glands, but uh, the telltale sign is actually you'll see the staining between their back legs because they're dribbling a lot of urine every single day. And by doing that, there's a strong, musty goat, dirty drain water smell. Oh my goodness, off the zebra go. See, one just got a fright and then they all continue running. Um, so if you're downwind of an elephant bull that's in mush, you're most certainly going to smell it. Otherwise, a lot of animals have different scents, and depending on how acute your senses are, and I suppose we all process smells slightly differently. But I don't particularly like the smell of a wildebeest. Especially also, again, a wildebeest bull just seems to smell a lot stronger. It reminds me of rancid butter that's been left in a pan and tossed in the sun for a long period of time. It's a weird sort of soury, sweetish smell. Wild dogs also not always a favorite with people. They smell like sweet, stinky, dirty socks. Um, and then some people say they can smell leopards and lions, but the only time I can really, pick that up is if they're wet, or just like really, really dirty. But for the most part, I can't smell them. But there are a number of different animals. But elephants, yeah, they're the ones that you'll pick up that scent most obvious. Zebra, take two, coming down to drink. It was interesting though how most of the herd ran off in the same direction, and only one individual keeps lagging behind. Off they go again. Even the buffalo have kind of got up now. It could be them just reacting to the zebra, or maybe they've picked up the scent of something that makes them shake in their hooves. But as you know, it's 1 o'clock Central African time, and what that means is that the AfriCam cameras will